Hey guys, welcome to our IVF video. Before we get started, I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there and a trigger warning. First and foremost, we are not medical professionals, so please do not take any medical advice from this video. This is just us simply telling you our story and our journey. Secondly, we'll be going over what it costs for us. And I just want to make it clear that everyone's journey is different. Everyone's protocol is different. It varies from clinic to clinic, state to state, patient to patient. You're not going to get a number from us that's going to be the same as a number of another patient. A lot of people genuinely just want an idea of a goal to set for themselves. Like us, that's what we wanted. We just wanted a number to work towards. With that being said, this is 100% self-pay. We did not have insurance. Your insurance may cover. That's why I'm saying price varies for everyone. We're just going to put those numbers out there. That way, if you are looking for a goal to set for yourself, this is where you maybe can start. And lastly, I just want to put a trigger warning out there that this video does talk about needles and injections. If that's something you're sensitive to, you may not want to watch this video. And also, this video mentions IVF success. But if you're currently going through IVF, I hope you find this video informative or at least maybe encouraging for your process, and we wish you lots of luck. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Welcome back to our channel. This is our IVF story.
Yeah.
This is all receipts for, actually this is only my receipts for my part of the IVF process. I didn't keep any of Katie's receipts just because I wrote them all down in this handy dandy little journal.
You should get one of these. I'll link it down below. It keeps track of like everything. There's calendars in it. There's billing, like you can
monthly overviews and stuff like that, and it's actually quite beneficial because it has more than one copy of everything, so that if it doesn't necessarily work the first time, or if you're going to do it more than once, you can keep it all in the one place. First things first is we actually didn't just do a normal IVF procedure. We did something called reciprocal IVF, which is just known as RIVF, and it's basically where you take one partner's egg, and once it's fertilized and turned into an embryo, it's then implanted into the other partner. And so we took Katie's egg and she went through the whole egg retrieval process. We used donor sperm and they were fertilized into a bunch of embryos, and then was transferred into me, and I carried Winnie through. Now we have her. November 2023, we made the decision after quite a while to look into IVF, to actually try and see if we could find a consultation with an IVF doctor that we preferred, which thankfully we found one, and would 100% recommend her and her staff for anyone's fertility. I called Hope randomly when Katie was at work one day. I'm glad I called in the November because they actually are booked a little further out for consultations, just because it is a busier clinic. The consultation actually was booked for March, and then we received a phone call in the February stating that they had a cancellation and if we could go, and of course we said yes because we were wanting to go. We were intrigued. Yeah. We were excited. And that was on Valentine's Day last year.
That was our consultation.
Our consultation, they were doing a deal for us because we are both two women, and I believe that it was $500 for the both of us to be seen. So when we went, what they done was they did some ultrasounds, which is the transvaginal ultrasounds. So they checked our uteruses, they checked our ovaries, just like the follicle counts and stuff like that. So she basically was just double checking that everything was kind of what it was supposed to be.
That way she could give us a ballpark idea of what our protocol would be and how,
yeah,
you know, basically make a plan for us of how we should go about things.
Yeah, the best way to go forward. Now, in that specific clinic, you have to pay upfront for your cycle. Everything was out of pocket. The first cycle that we paid by check was $12,650,
and that includes a lot. It covers what they call a baseline appointment, which was my first appointment.
Yep.
You have to go every couple of days throughout your IVF cycle to be monitored.
Yeah.
They're called monitoring appointments.
So,
It covered the egg retrieval, it covered the transfer, it covered a lot. After that initial consultation, I had to go back for what they call a baseline appointment. That was on the 30th of April, and at that appointment, that is where I got my protocol, which that means they prescribed me all my medications that I'd be taking for IVF.
basically, just to like, what it's trying to do is cause her eggs that are sitting in the follicles, it's trying to like basically overproduce them and like make more for a certain month, instead of there only being
Just
you know one, which is when you would get your period.
Right.
So what they had to do was give her so much medication in order to control how many, or try and get as many as possible, so that they could then see how big they were getting. They had to reach a certain size before Dr. A was able to then give her something called a trigger shot, which would then release them from the follicles, and that would be when she would go and do the egg retrieval.
I was doing my stem injections for 12 days.
12 days, yeah.
For 12 days, and within those 12 days, we had to go to the doctor like every 2 days usually, but towards the end, as the follicles grew, I had to go more often. Day 12 came around, I had an appointment, and I was told to trigger, which triggers ovulation.
Yep.
Right? I'm just trying to make sure I'm saying everything right.
Katie had to do,
2 different.
it was in 2 parts. So the 12th, which was at night time, she did the Lupron injection and the Novarel injection, but they had to be an hour apart from one another, and they had to be at exactly the time that was instructed by the minute, like very, very precise. And then the next day in the morning, I believe it was like 12 hours later, you had to have the second dose of the Lupron. Then again, it had to be exactly 12 hours, so we had timers set and everything.
Yeah, and then exactly 24 hours from my last trigger injection, I had my egg retrieval.
Yep.
And that was on the 14th.
And how was that for you, your egg retrieval?
It was really good. Like, I'm not someone who's afraid of anesthesia. Like, I'm someone who does not like going to the doctor, like, especially for something as invasive and intimate as IVF was. And that's why, like, I always, when we're talking about IVF and people are like, wow, that's crazy, I wish I could afford it like this, I would have found a way to pay $1 million if I had to, because that's how great Dr. A and her staff are. Like, I was at so much ease. Just literally the second we walked in and had our consultation, like, we were like,
you just knew.
Yeah, and I never was nervous going, ever, even though it was very invasive. During the egg retrieval, it can be, I mean, if you've ever had surgery, it can be kind of intimidating when you go and you're, like, you know, on an operating table, if you will.
Yeah.
And Dr. A was there just talking to me the whole time. She even held my hand as I, like, fell asleep and everything. I mean, she was great. After I came to, I guess you would say, I was sitting in, like, a recovery chair. And I was like, how did I even get in here? But they were so nice and everything, and I was just hungry.
Texted me for spicy tuna rolls.
Yeah, I was like, I want sushi. The nurse that took me out to the car was like, she's hungry, you need to get her some food. But I mean, it was I know it's not many people say this, but it was a really great experience for us. And
you want to share how many eggs they collected?
Yeah, they retrieved, like you mentioned, usually when you have your normal menstrual cycle, you have 1 egg. My stems allowed me to get 15 eggs.
They obviously do the whole fertilizing.
Yeah, that's whenever the donation comes into play. They take my eggs to the lab basically and fertilize them and create embryos from that point.
Yeah, and just to mention that even though Katie did get 15 eggs retrieved, when they go through the fertilization process, not all embryos make it. Sometimes some of them aren't, you know, the best quality,
and some of your eggs just don't fertilize.
They also grade them, so they'll go and they'll look at each individual embryo. They'll look at basically how they fertilized and all this other different factors, and then they will give them a grade. So Katie got some very high grades for her embryos, which was a very good thing for us.
We were very lucky.
Very lucky, and are pretty blessed, I guess you could say.
My part, thankfully, was now over with, and it was now on to you.
I had to have a hysteroscopy done. That was basically just to check to make sure that there wouldn't be anything in the way that would stop an embryo from attaching itself to the lining of my uterus. So she would go in to basically see that there wasn't any like fibroids, no polyps, and I did actually have a small polyp which she just removed there and then because it wasn't that uncomfortable for me. My hysteroscopy was another $1,750. And then I had to start medication. I had to call with my period when it started. So they usually go for day 2 of your period, and I had to go and have blood work done, and then they just had to make sure everything was
ready to go.
Once they received all the blood work back and everything, gave me my medication protocol, because I also had to be put on medication. I had aspirin, I had an antibiotics, I had steroids, I had estrogen, I had progesterone. So I had a lot more of like the hormone based stuff. I would have to keep going back just to make sure that my levels were all right, so they would want to maybe change certain things. So I do actually remember that for a while I was only doing like 1 mil of the progesterone, but then they upped it because it has to be at like a certain number before the transfer, and so they actually upped mine because mine wasn't as high as they would have liked it. So then June 19th came around. I had had all of my medications and everything like that, and they decided that it was time for me to get my transfer because my body at that point would have been ovulating, which is obviously the best time for an embryo to stick. So we went on the 19th of June and went for the transfer.
And this is our embryo that was transferred. This is little Winnie at the time.
It was a great experience, wouldn't change it. She hopped right in.
Like, you could just see the embryo like jumped right in.
Because of the transfer, so you technically have to wait 2 weeks. If you're doing IVF or you're just trying to conceive in general, you might have heard a lot of the like 2-week wait. Within that 14 days, it's your HCG level hopefully is rising, and that's obviously because you're pregnant at that point. Then they would give you a pregnancy test at the fertility clinic.
But a lot of people, if you've been through IVF, know sometimes you get a little like, you know, you don't want to wait. You're like, I want to take a test, and we don't recommend that because,
no,
you know,
we don't recommend that because what can happen, what happened to me, and that was that
you tested way too early.
I tested way too early and it was not showing at that point, and so I assumed that it didn't work, and I was very upset. Also was still very early, so
it was extremely, I think it was like day 4. Day 4 out of 14. But then you tested that day 5,
yep.
And she was so upset. She like threw the pregnancy test and was like, it's not.
It's like there's nothing there.
And I picked it up. Just, I don't even know why. I just picked it up and I was like, it is. It was just very faint, obviously, because it was only day 5. And I was like, there is a line.
Yep.
And then every day after, we took multiple tests and watched it get darker and darker.
Yeah, we did a little line progression just to make sure that it was actually working. We went on July 1st to have my pregnancy test done at the clinic, and they messaged me afterwards and they were like, congratulations, you are pregnant. They check your HCG levels, so I think it had to be over a certain amount, and mine was, thankfully. And then what they do is they actually make you come back again after, I think it's 48 hours, because it's supposed to have doubled. Just to make sure that it is actually, you know, progressing, and that it's not like a chemical pregnancy, and it's not the medications that you're coming off of that's obviously caused your HCG level to be higher. So they make you go back, and I went back, and I remember it being like crazy higher.
Yeah, like it went way up.
It went way
more than doubled, and we were like, oh my gosh, this embryo split. We thought we had twins for a minute there.
Just because of the level of my hormones. But yeah, so I think week 5 or 6 you go back and they do ultrasounds and they try and hear the heartbeat. At one point I think we went and she was just a little too small.
Yeah, you could see the flicker but you couldn't hear it.
Couldn't hear anything.
But she was there, flickering away.
Yep. And then what happens is you do that and then you graduate from the fertility clinic and you have to go to your OB and have, you know, them check everything and make sure everything's all right. But in order to graduate, we did the ultrasounds and stuff like that. It was like an extra $750.
Yeah, it was like a graduation package, which, like you said, included I think an additional blood work for your HCG level, and also I think 2 or 3 ultrasounds, however many they recommended. Yeah.
Because at that point, you know, we were getting ready to move on to the OB, but they wanted to just make sure that there wasn't any issues prior to me doing that.
Which is another thing we really appreciated about our clinic, because I've heard some clinics, once you have the transfer and
they let you go.
They can confirm pregnancy and then they kind of let you go, where Dr. A keeps you under her wing for a little longer, and we really appreciated that. Also, if we could have stayed with her throughout the whole pregnancy, we would have 100%.
100% would have not left.
When we were in the hospital and you were having Winnie, we were like, Dr. A just come. Like, she just has that. She's just so calming.
Yeah, she has that. She's got that aura, doesn't she? So overall, we obviously do have more embryos. We're not announcing it to everybody how many we have.
That's my decision. I just like having something for us and our family.
Yeah, and obviously they're Katie's embryos, so it's her decision. Well, they're our embryos. They're our embryos, but Katie has asked that we kind of keep that part private, and I fully understand and I fully support that. So just know that there is more. They are currently being stored for us.
Yes, and every year we have a storage fee once a year, and it's right now it's $1,000.
So we do have some more embryos. We will maybe hopefully have another baby.
It's up to you.
One day, 1 year.
You will always be the carrier, so that's ultimately your decision.
Yeah,
but I'm not opposed to it.
And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then obviously went through pregnancy, had Winnie. That is a whole other ball game.
Yeah, we can
make a video about that if you want us to, because so overall I can't give you the exact cost,
and that exact cost includes like that consultation, the IVF cycle, the medications, the graduation, like absolutely everything in order to
have Winnie.
Create
Winnie and her brothers and sisters. So we won't actually ever have to do another egg retrieval because we have, you know, additional embryos stored. We will only ever have to do the another transfer, which is very lucky for us, because I don't know if we mentioned, but it worked first time. We are very grateful. We're very lucky, because I know that a lot of people struggle. But the overall total for everything up until this point is $23,061.23. Now when I say that, like I said, it's different for everybody.
Yes.
Use that as a ball point, but I mean even then you can't really, because it's different.
If you want to go through IVF, basically just start a savings. You know, put a little. If you have to be self-paid, I know some insurance do cover certain things, but this is 100% self-paid, no insurance at all.
Yeah.
Out-of-pocket costs. That was our total, $23,061.23.
There was a care credit that we used just for some medications, because the medications can get quite expensive. I know for my progesterone, I was on that for pretty much 2 months.
Yeah.
No, longer. It was like 13 weeks.
Yeah,
it was like the whole first trimester I was on progesterone shots, which she had to give me my progesterone shot in the dollar store, and she had to give me my progesterone shot in a funeral home. There's in the car in Walmart,
because you have to take it like when you have to take it. It's no like, oh, I'll do it later. Yeah, it's no, like same time every day.
Yeah, you have to take it when you have to take it. So it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Like you got to, even in a funeral home. Yeah, so that included everything, and obviously I know that Katie's already said that it's different for everybody. People's cycles are different, people's medications are different.
The procedures
are different.
You may need one that we didn't, or you may not need one that we had. Like I said, state to state is different, clinic to clinic's
different.
But I wouldn't have it any other way. I would do it again if we had to.
Yeah, so that is basically everything. If anyone has any questions or anything like that, then please feel free to drop it down below in the comment section. We're not medical professionals, so
yes, always consult with an actual medical professional.
Yeah, 100%. And if you are interested, there's nothing wrong in just making a consultation with a fertility doctor. You don't always necessarily have to go ahead and do it there and then. So a lot of the time they're willing to just have a conversation with you and see what your goals are and what your plan is for starting a family or doing different cycles and things like that. So they would be a lot more equipped to answer questions than,
and they would give you a better estimate on how much things will cost, because as a doctor they'll know what you need to go through.
Yeah. But if you like this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up
and subscribe.
Yeah, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye.